Welcome back to VLP's 2020 Champions for Justice Awards. In this installment, you'll be seeing three attorneys from Hodgson Russ who are being honored for their work with our immigration program. VLP represents hundreds of low-income immigrants in immigration court each year. But sometimes, to truly achieve justice, you need to go to the Western District of New York or to the Federal Second Circuit Court of Appeals. These three attorneys, Kevin Carney, Timothy Hoover, and Spencer Derlin, really stepped up and are true champions for justice.
I want to speak today on behalf of the firm Hodgson Russ, and you'll hear from two of the other lawyers here, Tim Hoover and Spencer Derlin, about the specifics that they have, the types of cases they've worked on in the immigration practice. As a firm, we tried very hard to get as many of our lawyers involved in VLP as we can, and in particular in the immigration work, in part because it's very often very fact-intensive lawyering, which is really good experience for a lot of our younger lawyers. Second, it's certainly an area where there is a significant need. There are not, at least in this part of the state, an awful lot of legal service organizations other than VLP that are able to provide immigration work, particularly for detainees, and that has been the principal part of our work. But also, a lot of our lawyers do get involved with not specific immigration practices, but in assisting folks who have recently arrived in the country. Some of that is with will clinics and various other work. So, as a firm, we've been very, very happy to participate and find that VLP is a very important part of our pro bono commitment.
What we do for VLP is to partner with VLP on immigration matters, most often challenging immigrants and people who are not citizens who are detained at the Batavia Detention Facility, who've been held for extended periods of time without bond hearings. And that work takes place both in the district court in the Western District and also the Second Circuit. We also collaborate with VLP in actually representing immigrants on their petitions for review, their attempts to actually stay here separate from their bond status.
Cases on behalf of detainees in the Batavia Detention Center. These cases are not about whether the person has a right to stay in the country. They are about whether the person needs to be incarcerated while they fight for their right to stay in the country. And so these cases have been brought in federal court, in district court, and the Second Circuit, and they all concern this particular question about whether there's going to be any sort of inquiry into whether the person is dangerous or a flight risk, or if they can be released while they litigate their right to stay in the United States.
Most of the folks at Batavia do not have lawyers. I think study after study has shown that having a lawyer makes a difference. And for a lot of the cases where we're involved and other pro bono attorneys, the people do get bond, they do get released. That increases their ability to successfully fight to stay in the country. And then on the other side of the ledger, where we represent people who are trying to stay here, we're quite often successful. Other attorneys are as well. The point is, a lot of these folks are held without any due process, without a bond hearing. Many of them have never been convicted of any crime, and many of them eventually, with the assistance of counsel, end up staying in the U.S., being determined to have green card status or that they're U.S. citizens.
I volunteer for VLP, and I think that other people should as well, because there is such an immense unmet need, particularly in immigration and particularly in the Western District of New York. Other districts, particularly the Southern District, have very large groups of legal providers, and that's just not the case in the Western District. And so it really falls on private attorneys to step up and do these sorts of representations, and that's why I do it, and I hope that other people would as well.
As lawyers, we've got some privileges that a lot of other folks don't have, and that there are times when it's tempting to sort of think of law as predominantly an intellectual exercise. But in fact, it's a very human exercise, because what we are engaged in and what the legal profession should be engaged in is solving problems. The reality is that folks with a lot of resources have an easier time solving their problems than folks with limited resources. And so, but yet very often the problems that the more disadvantaged in our society have are more, on one level, more complicated, but on another level, they're simpler. And very often the rewards that come from, providing, even if it's very basic assistance to someone who really needs it, that's what practicing law ought to be about.
Thank you again for having joined us today. Please watch all the videos in this series so that you can learn about all the outstanding award winners in VLP's 2020 Champions for Justice Awards. And please visit our website at ecbavlp.com to help support VLP. Thank you again.